What we're now about to do is move back to back with our amazing, invigorating sessions lined up, curated for all of you. So stay tuned, be seated, because the next session is all about the luxury reset. This is where we're going to bring on board our speakers as they talk about the future of luxury and the premium brands in India. We all know that luxury brands are setting benchmarks by also going green and sustainable. But the big question is, how is the Indian luxury market growing? Or for that matter, what is really pulling world's ultra-luxury brands to India? We managed to gather a lot of data points back in the morning through some interesting sessions through the report as well. Let's deep dive a little more and gather these thoughts from our amazing speakers who are already seated here. It's only time for me to invite them on stage and get them to share their nuggets of insights with us. Meanwhile, let me also tell you, this particular session will be spearheaded by Prateek Mishra, who is the head of Luxury and Manila Retail Services India, JLL. So Mr. Prateek Mishra will be driving this session for us. And we'll be having our speakers on board in a short while, probably in just a minute. But we also have a couple of more speakers who are joining in. All right, so on that note, let me go ahead and firstly invite Mr. Prateek Mishra to please come on stage. And joining Prateek on the stage, well, besides the ones that are featured on the slide, we also have some more eminent speakers as well. So let me go ahead and invite them. First up, if I could please invite Sumit Lohia, Country Manager, Echo Shoes India. Mr. Abhishek Raj, COO, Lacoste India. Lavanya Nalli, Vice Chairperson, Nalli Group. Vijay KG, Founder, Luxpolis.com, ex-founding partner, Nykaa.com. Dilip Kapoor, CEO and Managing Director, High Design. And Rajat Wahi, Partner, Deloitte India. I'll tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the movers and the shakers of the industry right over here. Can we also move together our hands and have a round of applause? Bring the energy back in the air, everyone. If you're all excited about this amazing segment, and let's get to deep dive into the luxury reset. With that, I'm going to quickly hand it over to Prateek Mishra. Mr. Prateek, over to you there.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just doing the evening session, so hopefully you guys have had enough caffeine and you're all good on questions. So let's make this as interactive as possible. We have a very esteemed panel here, in terms of apparel, in terms of, athleisure, in terms of footwear. So quickly, I'm just going to open with a few facts that, all of you may already be aware. But, India's on the map in terms of luxury. And our economy is currently growing at a 7%, and we're the 5th largest economy in the world, and currently valued at about a $9 billion industry for luxury. And we're looking to go to about 200 billion by 2030, sorry. And the number of ultra HNI Indians grew about 11 times in the last decade, making it the 3rd billionaire country after US and China. So obviously, we're right up there in terms of spending power parity. Post the pandemic, obviously, we had a huge splurge in spending on luxury. So from real estate to luxury cars to spending on weddings, exotic holidays, gourmet food, which is now becoming the next luxury and dining experiences. So quickly, I'm just going to lead into this, my first question to Rajat in terms of what are the trends, next set of trends, Rajat, that you're seeing in terms of luxury and India on the map for luxury.
So thank you. Thanks for. Sorry, seems very loud. Thanks for the session, and thanks Mappic for inviting us. So I think you've already, like you pointed out, there is expected to be strong growth of luxury. Obviously, coming up to post-COVID, we saw a massive amount of revenge buying. We saw a big spurt as well. Also during the last 3 to 4 years, we saw lots of new unicorns being created. A lot of money coming into the startup ecosystem. Also, company valuations went up. A lot of that got linked to people sort of, the actual wealth being created, whether it was, people who were exiting businesses, ESOPs for employees. So I think clearly, globally, we saw a big push towards luxury. If you saw the watches market, the luxury bags market, the whole trend towards resale of luxury, especially pre-owned or pre-loved items, as they call it, has seen a massive spurt. Now, obviously, with interest rates going up now, and both in the West and in India, and the sort of contraction in venture capital money, and as well as money coming into startups, some of that has cooled down. But I think the overall trends seem to still be very, very strong. The market still expected to grow in at least high single digits for the next 4 to 5 years in India. And with the next year being an election year and lots of more spending and also the government's push on infrastructure, etc. So overall, the signs are very, very positive. We also are starting to see in the last 3 to 4 years luxury buying happening online. While overall the percentage in India may be very small, maybe 1% or whatever of luxury is bought online, but the fact that consumers are willing to buy, products with 20,000, 50,000 rupees online, whether it's wedding outfits, whether it's watches, it just shows that there is a lot more comfort for the consumers in buying products online even at luxury products without necessarily the touch and feel. So there's a lot more confidence in all of that. And along with that, we are seeing the rise of luxury real estate being created. In the past, there were only 2 malls. Now we are starting to see a lot more malls coming up. So real estate is very critical because luxury brands really want to be sold out of the right environment. And for that, we didn't have that. So I think a lot of these trends point to the direction of strong growth in both in India and obviously, globally as well.
Thank you. So I think just that's leading me to the next question to Vijay. He spoke about online and luxury online and that business growing. So obviously, I want to just check what is the the impact of digitalization and the challenges that you faced. And he briefly mentioned selling luxury online, right? Without the touch and feel. And when you're buying these expensive products, how do you break that barrier, and how have you seen the business grow? And obviously, you're doing really well from tier 2 markets, and also, what's your experience been like, and where do you see for the next 5-7 years, where's this online going?
Thank you, Prateek. So if you look at global online luxury adoption, right, in 2015, it was about 3%. And now, in 2 years, it's going to touch 30%, 25 to 30%. So I think post-COVID, what has happened is that the online luxury adoption, buying adoption has grown tremendously high, right? Even in India, we've seen our growth has happened. Our significant spurt in growth has happened post-COVID, right? And I think the people who are high spenders are increasingly becoming more and more confident buying online. And they go by the trust value, they go by the vintage of the business and henceforth, right? But if you look at overall, I think convenience of buying, at the comfort of your home and or from your office, that is tremendously gone up. And there are enough controls around fraud detection, prevention, and also people are becoming more and more comfortable buying online these days, for sure. Even high spend, today, we as a business, Lux Polish, does about 74,000 rupees per order as the average ticket size. That's significantly higher than Net-a-Porter or, Farfetch, which clock about $300 to $400 as the average order value. So in that sense, we are successful in attracting the high-end client and making him transact as well. Today, people are comfortable swiping their Amex card, or a Visa signature card on the upwards of, 10 lakhs and 12 lakhs and above. They're not hesitating, right? Number one. Number two, how we got here, in terms of, the journey so far has been since 2014-15. It's clearly, it's a matter of trust building exercise that, you build the trust online, you safeguard your reputation online, right? Today, everybody is going to do research before they buy, whether it's offline or online. It's 83% of buyers, whether it's mass market, premium, masstige, or luxury online buying. 83% of customers are researching online and they're converting either offline or online, right? And this is as per the Google insights, right? So it's important that a business has to safeguard the reputation online for sure, and that is going to translate into your online purchase behavior, right? The other thing is, of course, when it comes to buying high-value goods, the authenticity has to be established, and it has to be proven, right? So we as a business, we've been issuing certificate of authenticity which is almost like as detailed as a GIA certificate that you would get for solitaires, right? We give that detailed certificates for buying handbags, accessories, watches, everything, right? So that also adds up to the, the trust buying, online. And of course, any luxury business you cannot build overnight. No amount of marketing money you can splurge and acquire a luxury customer overnight. You have to build it at a, at a step-by-step level, over a period of, let's say 2 decades, 3 decades. Obviously, a lot of traditional luxury brands have taken centuries to be where they are today. But I think going forward in the next 30 years, I think you can definitely establish a luxury brand over the, in the probably a faster time period, like 2 decades or 1 decade, right? You see the rise of Sabyasachi. Sabyasachi as a brand has risen, in the last 1 decade tremendously. Today, there is a great resale value for Sabyasachi bridal lehengas, right? And the pre-owned Sabyasachi bridal lehengas are bought by the brides themselves for their own wedding, right? I'm not talking about the brand new, I'm talking about the pre-owned, right? So for their own wedding, they're buying. So that sort of summarizes the entire, how a luxury brand can be built, traditionally and now in the new age, how it can, sort of be established firmly, for the next, decades to come.
Okay, thank you. So just leading up to this question, Lavanya, as he mentioned Sabyasachi and coming to saris, you're a pioneer in the sari segment. And just a quick stat, where we had, 50 to 60% of luxury will be consumed by Gen Z and millennials by about 2025. Obviously, the saris is making some sort of a comeback with because of Bollywood, with social media, and with some very interesting brands doing great things with the saris globally and in India. What do you kind of have to say, and in terms of relevance for the new age consumer, which is the Gen Z and the millennials, who are consuming the luxury products, and where do you see this this target segment taking saris or luxury for that matter?
So I'll answer that question a couple of different ways,
Sure.
right? So the first one is, what is the consumer's attitude towards saris? Like, that's evolved. And in my own experience, and I've been in this field about 18 years.
Just put up the mic a little bit higher.
Yeah, so in my own experience and what I've seen, the sari went through 3 waves, right? The first one was, I would guess, pre-1990s, where you wore it out of habit. It was a garment of, it was societal conformity. It wasn't a luxury product. It was just the garment that almost every woman was expected to wear. And then I think we went through this phase in the middle where women rejected the sari because they thought of it as a, they reject having to wear something. And now if you see, there's been like a revival, right? The last few years where a lot of women are choosing to wear the sari, and it's moved from I have to wear a sari to I get to wear a sari. The sari itself has moved from everyday wear to a garment that you wear for occasions, special occasions, celebrations, weddings. So from that standpoint, to answer your question head on, see, the 50 to 60%, whatever those numbers are, numbers give us directional sort of insights. In any industry, we'll have to dive under the covers and see, all right, what % of that makes sense for saris? What % of that makes sense for the wedding consumer? What % of that makes sense like across geographies, right? And I don't think for us, it's 50 to 60% of our consumer base that is that young. Having said that, I do think that the consumer keeps evolving, right? So if there's something that I'd leave people with, it's, you've really got to know your consumers. In India, probably every 5 years is a generation shift. So what worked 10 years ago is not going to work. Probably what worked 5 years ago is not going to work, especially for for brands like us. You can be a heritage and a legacy brand, but the principles that you have to rest on have to be deeper than just what the consumer was doing, like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The second thing in terms of like innovation, and I don't know that this is necessarily a Gen Z or a millennium problem, but it's more of the ecosystem also continues to evolve, right? E-commerce was not considered a legitimate channel 10 years ago. especially by incumbent players, right? And it wasn't 10 years ago. It wasn't when we started Nalli.com, it wasn't considered that. It was the Flipkart, Amazon, Snapdeal was, everyone was saying it's a race to the bottom, you'll only get your discount seekers, you'll get your deal buyers. But the reality is, see, you're seeing the format in its infancy. It's going to become mainstream. The pace at which there was early adoption, the pace at which, while that was happening, there was technology innovation, right? Smartphones were becoming ubiquitous and far more powerful than anything that people could have thought of back then, right? And all of that traffic was sort of shifting to the mobile. Images were becoming like much clearer. There was so much more that people were able to do. So you could sort of predict even back then that today maybe it's not yet where it needs to be to service a luxury brand, but in the future it would, right? And then that becomes the question for all of the leadership in brands like this to say, do you want to be a follower or do you want to sort of like, because if you're going to follow and you're going to make the investments into these so-called not really legitimate formats only after they become mainstream, you probably already lost the plot.
Thank you. Dilip sir, I'm going to come to you next. You've, I think, about 95 company-owned stores. You've got international presence. You've entered Tier 2 also in a big way. Do you see Tier 2 as a market also, leaning towards luxury and becoming more informed? And obviously purchasing power is there now in these emerging markets. So do you see that the emerging markets and Tier 2 contributing a lot to the luxury segment, especially your category, or do you still feel the metros and that will continue to dominate?
I think when we talk about luxury, I always get confused anyway. I don't know what's affordable luxury, this luxury, that luxury. But all right, talking at the higher end of the market, clearly, India overall was a disappointment for international brands. They always talk to me and say, what the hell, India, we would think we do so much. So that itself is a very interesting story. It doesn't necessarily mean that India should have followed what happened in Southeast Asia, for example, and we didn't. Now, is there a market or not, and who does the market belong to is the question. I think that's the question that all of us, as being in the business phase. After COVID, we've seen an increase of 42% in our average selling price. Now, clearly it means that the rich are getting richer, the market is moving up, maybe the poor are also doing very well, the middle is getting hollowed out. And that's sort of, that's something that we all have to face. So yes, if we don't attend to the customer who's aspiring for what we call luxury, we're a flop. And that applies to Tier 2, that applies to Tier 1, even Tier 3, and even e-com. Even with all its discounting, we're seeing a massive increase in average selling price, even on e-com. Now, what is luxury in India is going to be one of the most interesting questions for retailers all across the world. I think we have a lot of people here who, the easiest thing would be to assume whatever happened in Southeast Asia, whatever happened in China is going to happen in India. I think the fact that you've got Lavanya sitting here representing Nalli, and you've got maybe me sitting here, hopefully gives us a hope that that's not going to happen. I hope even you eventually will be selling other than Louis Vuitton also. It won't be only Louis Vuitton. To me, that's the future of, the interesting part of the future of luxury in India, is that we have our own story to tell. We can't just be a copier, because then we have no space. But as long as we have heritage, which we have a massive oodles and oodles of heritage, we all know that. We live differently, we know that. Look at our marriages, we know that. So we're different. We are not the same as the rest of Asia, the way it has gone. So to me, Tier 2, Tier 3 even, Tier 1 obviously, has a massive growth of luxury coming up. The rich are getting richer much faster than is even the economy growing. The economy may grow by 7%, but the rich are getting richer by maybe 15% a year. So we are seeing growth of 20%, averaging, including COVID period, clearly means that the rich got richer and richer and richer. So the luxury market is going to expand much faster. And the space is not as simple as we can't just look at the rest of the world and say, oh, यहाँ पर Louis Vuitton डाल दो, यहाँ पर इसको डाल दो, इसको डाल दो, इसको डाल दो. It's not going to be as simple. The Indian luxury brands also have a space and they're going to fight for it too.
Thank you. Sumit, I'm going to come to you. You know, a lot of international brands are looking at India as a market, and currently, you know, athleisure and especially the sneaker culture is the new luxury for India. You know, it's these Jordans are flying off the shelves, and now you were the pioneer. You were actually leading this from 2015 when you first entered the country, and to date, what are the challenges that you faced, you know, when you first came in, and what's the transition that you've seen, and how do you kind of educate the Indian customer in terms of your offering and the price points that you're currently at? So,
first of all, I would like to speak about the sneakerish culture in
Sure,
India. It was not there, not started recently. It was there since beginning. When we remember, we used to go to schools and we used to buy Bata shoes, action shoes, and we wanted one shoe which can be worn against or over a denim for yourself. It was probably a Reebok shoe or an action shoe. So athleisure is coming from that background that we wanted to look different, Gen Z, and then Reebok took over, Adi took over, and places like brands like OT, brands like Bugatti are also coming in with the athleisure trend. How I'm positioning my brand in the country is, this is definitely a leather brand, definitely. But when athleisure gets a sprinkle of leather into it, it becomes premium athleisure. So I would want to position myself, which we are already positioned globally, called as a premium footwear, already globally, with a 1.6 billion euro brand already in the globe at this point in time. So India is still looking for a brand like us, in which there is no competition after, say, a Clarks or a Aldo or a Steve Madden. But do we say that? Is India not having those kind of consumers who can afford this kind of a brand where the ASP is 15,000? The answer is yes, there are people who can afford these brands. However, yes, we need to educate the businesses first, like all the malls, all the people who are buying, all the multi-brands and all the high street owners, and then we'll probably go to B2C after that. It is again a challenge with us that we are also in parallel to all the Reliance brands and Arvind brands at this point of time. But having said that, this is a complete niche product, and the people whoever I've spoken to, they love the brand. They love brand Echo, and then they are really looking forward to it. I mean, I know cases where people go to Pune from Mumbai to buy my pair of shoe. People come to my office to buy a pair of shoe, and they're looking for it desperately. So yes, people are looking for that. People are looking for the differentiation. People are looking for that brand which differentiate amongst all the available brands in the country. But yes, we need the venues for like malls, high street, and also tell a consumer that, okay, we are there and we are there relevant to you. You're looking for this brand, and they are trying to eye for this brand at this point of time. So with the B2B buzz and the B2C buzz, which we are creating, and we have a plan for the next year as well, I'm sure we will be able to reach the relevant consumer in the coming times. But having said that, we do not have any competition as such.
Correct.
And people do love the brand.
That's a difficult space to be in with no competition.
Yeah, definitely yes. And very difficult from perspective that, okay, when people ask me who are competitors, I say I don't know who are my competitors right now. Yeah, so it's difficult. It's in the beginning it's difficult, but I'm sure once we find that place in the economy of India, then it will be a differentiated brand altogether. Like High Design, like Nalli, like Lacoste for that matter, they are a differentiated brand. Also Crocs, my previous company. People are looking for that differentiation. And if I talk about one definition to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once you see the top column of that, when you want to differentiate yourself from others, we are sitting just next to that. So if you want to have a different experience altogether of footwear, definitely Echo is the answer.
Thank you. So I'm just going to lead Abhishek. We spoke about what you guys have done with Lacoste, over the last 10 years in terms of the stores and in terms of the whole collaborations and all. You've done a phenomenal job. Digital is a big business for you guys, and you've got a lot of good traction coming from there. Where do you see the next 2-3 years in terms of the online business for you guys and the plan for the next 5 years?
Thanks, Pratik. Good evening, everyone. My name is Abhishek, and I'm representing a brand called Lacoste. So first of all, what I agree to Dilip sir, post-COVID, there's been a lot of change in terms of customers' buying behavior. But what I don't agree to Dilip sir, when he says that international brands should not get the traction in Indian market so that Indian brands can sell. So probably that is something that I don't want, being a representative.
I didn't say that. I said we all have space.
Okay. So for that matter, yes, COVID has actually changed a lot in terms of how customers are consuming a premium or a base to luxury brand. Post-COVID, our prices have also gone up, as Dilip sir mentioned, prices have really gone up. But still, India is consuming. There's been a lot of theories around it, why India is consuming, how India is consuming. Some says that people used to go to buy luxury outside India, now they are buying luxury inside India because it is available. There could be multiple theories around it, but the part is that, yes, people are consuming, that's one. So whether we are actually preparing ourselves in this market to cater to that demand or not is what we need to understand in terms of how we are preparing and what is the trend. Trend for a brand like a premium or bridge to luxury brand, if there is no proper environment available across the country to sell luxury, because to sell luxury you need an environment, digital is the only route that you can take. And as everybody has discussed, post-COVID, digital has really got the traction and people are ready to buy expensive stuff also online. So what is happening and what is the trend that we see in terms of? Digital is basically becoming a combination of physical and digital, and put together we can call it as a digital, which is digital and physical. Because going forward, most of our orders probably will be shipped to end customer from our offline stores when Omni come in play in full-fledged way. So that is probably the trend. As business, we see close to 40% of our business in next 3 to 4 years should come from digital channels. We are selling bridge to luxury across all the platform, and most interestingly, we sell it through Amazon also, and people are buying fashion on Amazon, which is kind of the acceptance level that we can see, and that too a higher price point articles. So probably that is the trend that we see in next 4 to 5 years. We think that we can penetrate to the deeper, be it tier 1, 2 or 3, because there is aspiration available in tier 3, whether they buy in full price or in discount, but there is aspiration. And I think India being a 140 billion, we still have a lot of capacity to consume.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhishek. This is a general one. Maybe Lavanya, or you can take this. You've got stores all across the world. You've got you're a Indian brand that's gone global, and so you as well. You've got a lot of international store presence. What is the response of Indian brands abroad? Because a lot of Indian brands are now going global and keeping that heritage somewhere in place. What is the kind of response you guys have received abroad, and what's the future of Indian brands in the global context?
So I'd love to hear what Dilip sir has to say on this, but I'll speak from Nalli's experience. So we've got about 10 stores internationally. All of them are company-owned, company-operated. Now the thing is, Nalli is a little bit peculiar in the fact that saris are predominantly still worn by Indian women, right, wherever they live. So it's not really a product category that's going to translate as well to non-Indians. But a couple of tailwinds that we have, right? So one, the diaspora abroad, I think is becoming much more, and I think this is, to your point, not just about brands embracing their authenticity, but I think also people embracing their authenticity and where they come from, right? And that origin story and that sort of trend has led to a lot more comfort with regard to wearing the sari for our consumers abroad in those locations which are not India. That's one. The second, which is an interesting trend is that we've been seeing more and more women, not necessarily Indian origin women, wanting to have Indian weddings, right? So they want the destination wedding, they want the big fat Indian wedding, they want the celebratory experience. So that's obviously still niche today, but I feel like it's also another trend in that direction where people are sort of drawing from other cultures and other influences. And for us as business people, it's for us to keep our ears to the ground and sort of see where this is going to play out.
So anything from...
Interesting, because her customer base would be the diaspora, the Indians abroad. We have consciously stayed away from that. I think it's tough because you need to tell a story. We used to sell through distributors, and we've made a conscious decision that if you want to build a brand, you have to have a direct connect with the customer. So clearly online is helping. That helps because it puts you in touch. But really the brand gets built in stores. And what we are seeing is we find pockets of great success. But finding a larger, I think we're still maybe 15, 20 years away from Indian upmarket, semi-luxury brands finding a series of stores so that the brand actually has salience and is known everywhere. We have some very good stores. We have a store in strange places like Taiwan. We have stores in Bosnia. We had a lot of stores in Russia, surprisingly. So yes, but I would say we are still 15, 20 years from saying that we can build an international luxury brand, which is non-Indian in this. It's not ethnic. It's from India, but it's not ethnic.
Sure. I think we almost are out of time. I'm going to open up to the audience in case there are any questions that you guys have for the panel. If anybody has some questions, because I have a few myself. Anyone? Yeah. Can we give them a mic, please? Okay, just hold on.
Good evening. My question is very simple. I have got a lot of feedback on this very good forum about luxury market, which is increasing leaps and bounds. My question is very simple. India, which is 7.8% economic growth, China is doing down, India is coming up. And you can see 60% of Indians now aspiring to have a good flats, good buying spree, double income, single kid market ahead. So a lot of disposable income. So India is going to be so robust market in next 3 years. Are we really geared up for such a massive retail overhaul at the moment? Because I'm looking for next 3 to 5 years. It will be tremendous change. Organized market, which may be 3 to 4% now of the Indian retail market, is going to 10, 12% in the recent future, or maybe 15%. So are we really geared up because such a good market ahead? That's a very simple question.
Rajat, do you want to just quickly address?
So I think, a lot of the panelists have already sort of addressed that. Of course, there is a lot of expectation that India will grow very fast. But my sense is that that's, again, mostly masstige. To expect luxury, or even what we call, however you want to define luxury, to grow leaps and bounds potentially is going to be challenging. One from the point of view of disposable income, our own ability to be able to spend on luxury brands. Again, we have to define what luxury means in India. And secondly is the lack of real estate. Today, there is very few places where luxury brands can come and open stores. And luxury brands will not just go into any sort of high street or mall to open. They want the absolute environment that actually caters to that. So I think from that perspective, yeah, the growth will be there. I think we are looking at high single digit, maybe double digit growth based on a low base. But I think still far away from where a China or a US or any of the other markets are. I mean, that's my point of view.
Thank you.
Vijay, you want to?
So, if you look at the future, India is definitely there on the roadmap, right? For luxury business, I think India is going to be the next big destination. If you look at all the BRIC countries, China, as you rightly said, China is cooling down. India is the next bright destination for luxury market. And if you notice, LVMH has already started putting a lot of focus on Indian market. The case in example was they recently did the Dior, the fashion show in Mumbai, right? And so such is the kind of attention now the luxury brands have started, giving to Indian market. Number one. Number two, if you see Indian audience growth, right? You see millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha Zen. So essentially, people who born after 1981 to people who born after 2012 as well. And the consumption from these segments is going to go up to as much as 30% of the overall luxury market in India. So they are literally adding up the growth for Indian luxury market. And these are the general trends overall globally as well, right? Number three, if you look at, what is to answer to your question, what is really, how is this going to happen? This growth is going to happen. Everybody's saying that luxury market is going to grow by 3.5 times by 2030. Real estate infrastructure is not catching up as fast as, our projections are. But I think I think you're going to see spurt in luxury real estate as well. Case in point again, Aditya Birla Fashion is going to start a Galerie Lafayette, type of stores in South Mumbai. And similar stores are coming up in Delhi as well. Reliance Brands is setting up Geo World Plaza, that is coming up. So you will see very soon that, these supermarkets, the luxury, the high street and luxury, department stores, are going to be very much there in a couple of years. The kind of digital revolution that India has embarked upon and the kind of, it sort of surprised everyone, saying that, that today our digital adoption is at 800 million internet penetration, far surpassing US and European and other countries. We are only next to China, right? So you would see the similar level of growth that will happen in luxury consumption as well, right? So don't underestimate right now, just wait and watch next 5 years. You will see amazing, growth in Indian luxury market, both in terms of offline, online, and the omni-channel and the metaverse, kinds of things that you've not heard of, you've not experienced, that is going to go up.
Thank you very much. Now my next small question is about saris. हमारी साड़ी में बात हो रही थी कि हम इंडिया के बाहर के मार्केट में भी जाएं और लोगों को वहाँ जितनी भी फीमेल्स हैं, तो जैसे अंग्रेज़ों ने हमें चाय पिलाना सिखाया, कॉफ़ी पिलाना सिखाया, 140 करोड़.
Sorry, as a card-carrying Tamilian, I don't understand.
Oh, lovely. So, ठीक है. I'm a hardcore North Indian. So, जो है, what I'm telling, if English guy can teach us to drink tea and coffee, which is one of the largest market, India is one of the largest market now. Why can't we take saris to an international market? Well, all foreign ladies, not NRIs, wear the saris and expand Indian culture and take a big market from India to the abroad. Is it possible?
Okay, so two things. One, I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question, and I think it's something that I wish would happen. But to answer it in a more practical sense, we build for the consumer, right? What the consumer wants, what their need states are, what their emotional states are. We build for them, right? And saris is something that's intrinsically Indian, and a lot of people have a very strong sort of emotional connect to it, more so now because it's moved out of the domain of everyday wear. Does that emotion translate abroad? What is the need that it serves for a consumer abroad? So these are the questions that I think I would ask, just going back to first principles. The sari in its current form, the way that it is, I don't know if this would translate. But like I said to my earlier point, there are tailwinds, right? There is Indian weddings, for whatever reason, has just taken off. There's a lot of demand for that, and I think as the world gets more connected, there is this growing movement of even if you're not Indian, you want to partake in something that's celebratory, that's larger than life, that has symbolism, right? And those are the spaces where I would say, who are those consumers? What is it that they want? And can we, to Dilip's point, have a homegrown Indian brand made for the international market?
Thank you. I think that's all the time we have. I'm getting dirty looks from the moderators. So, guys, I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much, esteemed panelists, and thank you, Mappic, for letting us do this. Thank you. Thank you.